In a quiet Oregon town, a retired Marine just wanted peace, a warm fire, and a quiet life. But when the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood started stealing from his yard, she sparked a war she couldn't control. What followed wasn't just payback, it was poetic justice, sealed in wood and delivered with silence. This is the story of how firewood became a weapon, and karma burned brighter than ever. Elias Monroe lived for quiet. After 20 years in the Marines, he didn't crave applause, conflict, or recognition. He just wanted to hear the trees sway and feel the earth firm beneath his boots. In the wooded folds of Pine Hollow, Oregon, he found that quiet, at least at first. His home sat tucked at the edge of the cul-de-sac, a humble craftsman surrounded by stacks of firewood, whiskey barrels, and a rust-red pickup that rarely left the gravel. His closest neighbors were deer, wind, and fire. For Elias, that was enough. Until Rita Dunning arrived. She moved in with silk robes, spotless SUVs, and the volume of someone who thought money excused everything. Within weeks, she had declared herself president of the Pine Hollow HOA. Nobody remembered voting. Nobody wanted the job. But Rita wanted control and got it. Elias stayed out of her way. When she fined a neighbor for inappropriate gnome placement, he didn't speak up. When she issued a warning about overgrown rosemary, he chuckled into his coffee and chopped more wood. But then his firewood started disappearing. At first, it was subtle. A few logs missing. He figured maybe it was a neighbor in need. No big deal. Then he saw the boot prints. Small, shallow, and oddly careful. So he checked the cameras. There she was, Rita, dragging logs across his yard in the dead of night, muttering to herself like she was doing the world a favor. He watched her prop open her garage door with one hand and haul wood inside with the other. That was her first mistake. Elias didn't confront her. Not yet. He wasn't interested in shouting matches or empty threats. He believed in patience and precision. So he made a plan, using an old woodworking lathe and a surgeon's hand. Elias hollowed out several logs. Inside, he placed small, chilled capsules, each one containing a colony of cold-tolerant, hyper-aggressive army ants, bred in a controlled lab, highly reactive to heat, and completely legal to own, as long as they weren't released. Then, under a pale winter moon, he restacked the logs by his shed, positioning the tainted ones toward the front. Then he waited. 2 nights later, the motion alert pinged again. She came back. Same boots, same silk robe, same sense of entitlement. By morning, the neighborhood had changed. It started with screaming. Rita's house lit up like a beacon, every window glowing, every neighbor standing outside, unsure whether to laugh or run. From inside came the unmistakable chaos of woman versus nature. The ants had been activated. They didn't just swarm her living room, they claimed it. Crawling from the fireplace across Persian rugs, scaling antique furniture, pouring through vents and electrical sockets. She burst from her house in tears, welts rising across her arms, robe flying open, slapping herself like she was possessed. Firefighters arrived expecting flames. What they found was worse. They watched, stunned, as Rita raved about biological attacks and collapsed in the middle of the street. One firefighter, after exhausting all other options, hit her with a CO2 extinguisher just to get her to stop rolling in flower beds. The neighborhood kids cheered. The adults stared. No one stepped forward to help. Elias, watching from his porch, took a slow sip of bourbon and said nothing. Then came the retaliation. Within 48 hours, Elias received 3 HOA citations: improper wood storage, unsecured fencing, and aggressive behavior. It was laughable. It was expected. And it was a mistake. Elias had documentation, security footage, lab receipts, testimonies from neighbors, and a lawyer, retired JAG, quiet as a scalpel, who had dealt with people like Rita before at the emergency HOA board meeting. Elias presented his case. He played the footage of Rita stealing the logs, showed receipts for his custom insect deterrent logs, displayed photos of his woodpile, neatly stacked, within code. Then he revealed the new violation letters signed by Rita alone. What followed was silence, then fury. Board members who had tolerated Rita out of convenience suddenly realized what she had cost them: legal exposure, public embarrassment, and a house fire without flames. One by one, they turned. A vote was called, unanimous. Rita Dunning was stripped of her title, but she wasn't done. She sued Elias. The charges: emotional distress, property endangerment, and, bafflingly, biological warfare. In court, she showed up with welts, a neck brace, and a list of 28 alleged fire ant bites. She sobbed through her testimony, claiming Elias was a militant sadist with a personal grudge. Elias responded with three things: the footage, the receipts, and silence. The judge watched everything, raised an eyebrow, and asked one question. Did you enter his property without permission? Rita froze. Case dismissed. She was ordered to cover Elias's legal costs and pay for damages to her own property, caused by her own theft, within a month. Her house was up for sale. No one offered to help her pack. No one waved goodbye. And Elias. He kept chopping wood. That winter, his fires burned long and clean. His bourbon stayed full. And his porch became a quiet refuge for neighbors who had learned the value of boundaries. One evening, a woman named Dana, new to the neighborhood, single mom, eyes tired, came by with a violation letter in hand. It accused her of excessive use of holiday lights. She asked if it was real. Elias looked at the letter, then looked at her daughter, 5, maybe 6, wearing a hand-knit reindeer hat. No, he said, not anymore. By spring, the HOA had restructured. Elias didn't run for president. He didn't have to. His name carried weight. When he spoke, people listened. And when he didn't, they still paid attention. Years later, the firewood stacked outside his shed was untouched, not because of fear, but because of respect. And somewhere out there, in a rented townhouse with no fireplace, no title, and probably still scratching phantom bites, Rita Dunning was a cautionary tale with a very itchy ending. Elias never mentioned her again. He didn't need to. Some justice speaks louder in silence, especially when it crackles.